reMarkable devices generally have good battery life because of the eink technology that is inherent to them, but there are some tips and tricks that I think can help you extend that. So whether you have a reMarkable 1, a reMarkable 2, or the new Paper Pro, or any future device they might release, these are some tips and tricks that I've learned over the past 8 years and wanted to share with you.
Now, the first and most important tip, I think, is your battery standby time. So if you go to your settings and then go to general and then battery, you can turn the standby on and that will do 5 minutes, 20 minutes, or 1 hour. I like to leave it lower, so I actually have mine on 5 minutes. If I need to make changes to the note, I'll generally use the 20-minute setting, but I used to use the 1 hour setting because of the next feature we'll talk about, especially on the RM2, where when you close the lid, it doesn't actually turn the device off like the Paper Pro. And obviously this is something you can toggle along the way. Depending on what you're doing, it might be relevant to have one versus the other. Now, the reason I think putting your battery timeout at a lower setting is good is because in a previous update video, I talked about this, but they updated a feature where because eink is basically bistable, and what that means is you can see the black bar on top. In this update, they actually added the ability to show the page or the note that you're looking at without the power being on. And so that's kind of a game changer. That's a feature that I don't really see on many of these other eink tablets. And so that setting, you can see this page, for example, was something I was working on. It's actually the tips for this video, and it's just showing, but the power is off. That's really useful for your reMarkable 2 or Paper Pro if you have it propped up and you're just referencing your notes for something else you're doing. The way you enable that is in your settings. You can go to the display tab here, and then there's a visible content option, which you can check, and that will just show your document or overview when in standby mode. This one I highly recommend, and it ties back to the battery setting where I think keeping it to a 5-minute or 20-minute auto shut off is just generally better for your battery life. And because of that feature, it makes it feasible. Whereas 1 hour was probably the setting I used to use, and now I've changed it. Now for the third tip, reMarkable's app is generally the best, I think, in terms of syncing. But what that does mean is that it's checking very often. And so what I would recommend is only to sync things when you've finished a document or something you're working on, or you're putting the reMarkable away. And so that can easily be done by turning your Wi-Fi on or off. Alternatively, another way you can do it is the battery drop down here has an airplane mode, and it'll turn off all connections, and that Wi-Fi should shut off as well. And that will greatly extend your battery because it's not constantly syncing to the server and checking for new documents on another device or from your app. I would also just generally recommend to keep your firmware up to date because that will give you the best battery life available at the moment in the reMarkable software. Now, another tip I learned from the Supernote platform when I was doing a battery life video on this was that these EMR devices, it's the same technology as the reMarkable. If you leave the pen on the screen, the way the pen works with the screen is electromagnetic resonance. And there's basically a layer under the screen, and that checks for magnetic interferences from the pen. And so if you have the pen resting on the device or even like really near over there, then it's possible that it could be talking to the device constantly, and that could have draw on your battery. So generally, I'd recommend to keep it in the siloed position here, or keep it on a table when you're using it instead of on the device. Now, these tips, I'm going to split it up. There's one that's for the reMarkable 2 and one for the Paper Pro, and they're a little bit different because they're different devices. But the RM2, the charging port is USB-C, but it's not really up to modern standards because this is almost a 5-year-old device now. In general, on the reMarkable 2, you do want to keep your battery life above 10 to 15% all the time, because if it does drain down to 0, there's often a chance that you're going to be using a more modern USB-C charger. Like this is a GAN 65-watt charger. And if my reMarkable 2 is dead and I go to plug it in with this, it just will not charge at all. And I think that's because it's a much lower spec of USB-C. And so what you can do for that generally, if it is dead and you're finding that it's not charging at all, use a lower powered cable. So something like a USB-A cable, or just plug something into your laptop because that will be generally lower power than a wall plug, and it should start to top up. It just has this weird thing where when it's completely dead, it likes trickle chargers or generally slower chargers. And then for the Paper Pro, because the front light is a lower powered front light, it's good to check constantly if you have that on or off. Because it's a darker screen because of Gallery 3, you generally indoors or in some darker scenarios, you will be using the front light. But then when you go out to a bright environment, you're going to forget that you had the front light on. So I think a tip there is just to generally check the level of the front light. Every time you open it up, just check the front light and see how it's doing there and just make sure it's at the setting you need. And then also with the Paper Pro, the pen being on the side does charge it so that you never get into a situation where the pen's completely uncharged. Just always keep it docked there and siloed. Hopefully these battery life tips help you get the most out of your reMarkable. If you want to see a tips and tricks video, you can see that here. Or if you want to see the last software update video on the reMarkable platform, you can check that out here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.